Why is it important that we measure water quality?
Well, we measure water quality basically because we want to see how healthy the bay is. Like if you go and take your blood to tell you what parameters like cholesterol, how well you are, how healthy you are. So we check different parameters in the water to tell us how healthy we are. So we have a meter, has different probes on it. It gives you pH, dissolved oxygen, temperature, and different parameters that we can check. And this will help us tell us if the fish have a good environment to live in. And that people could use it too, so we can get an idea of that too.
Abs, that's great. Okay, so what kinds of things are you measuring with the meter right now?
All right, so we can measure dissolved oxygen, which is the amount of oxygen that's in the water. So like soda has carbon dioxide in it, water has oxygen in it like the air. So we can measure that. So.
Okay, and what did you get for dissolved oxygen?
7.88.
All right, so 7.88.
And is that good, Mark?
Yes. Anything above 5 is great. Less than 5, you can have problems. And our little guys that live in the bay and won't do so well.
Okay.
All right, so temperature?
Temperature.
19.7.
And that'll vary a lot during the year. So, and salinity.
Is 2.82.
And salinity is the amount of salt in the water.
Salt in the water. Now remember, an estuary is where fresh water and salt water meet. So let's learn a little bit more about salinity and about what that is. And we might compare what you got, although I think it might be in different units than what they're getting up here.
With different ways you do it. So you're going to see a different method besides just doing it with a probe.
So this probe is not the only way to measure water quality. I get a feeling that this might be a little bit of an expensive piece of equipment, and we have some students using some other kinds of equipment that actually probably most classrooms can also afford to have.
This is a test that you can do in your classroom. These students are using a hydrometer today, and they're using that to measure salinity. And Jessica, you've got 3 different samples of water here. Can you tell us where they're from?
The 3 different types of water are tap water, estuary water, and ocean water.
Okay, so you've got tap water, estuary water, and ocean water. And what's the difference between these?
They all come from different places, and they all have different amounts of salt in them.
Okay, so salt is the salinity that we've been talking about. Okay, and Dan, what's next?
Well, Vincent has the results here. Interesting thing is to compare the ocean water that we got from the actual ocean this morning and the estuary water, which we got from right here. And Vincent, what did we get for ocean water?
Well, for ocean water, the specific gravity was 1.025. So the salinity was 33.9 parts per thousand of salt.
33.9 for the ocean. Okay, and what about the estuary?
For the estuary, we had 1.02 for the specific gravity. So we had 27.4 parts per thousand of salt.
Okay, and then our third sample is?
Well, we got plain old tap water, and as you can see, this hydrometer is floating very low in the water. There's no salt in here, and so it's reading at 0, which is good because it's telling us that there's no salt in our tap water. Estuary water's got a little bit of salt in it, but not as much as the ocean water. And Jessica can tell us why estuary water doesn't have as much salt in it as ocean water.
The estuary water is a mixture of fresh water and salt water. The ocean is just pure salt water.
Okay, and we know that because we've got fresh water coming in from the rivers that are emptying into the estuary here today. Okay, so is there anything else that we should know about salinity? It's great to see that you can really see the hydrometer floating much higher in the ocean water than it is in the estuary water. It's a little lower there and even lower in the fresh water. So you can really get a sense of it just by looking at how these are floating, about how much salt is in the water. Anything else we should know before we head over to the next parameter?
Just when Mark Ringingary did this test with his fancy equipment, he got just about the same results as we got with our hydrometers. So that should encourage you to try this with something you can buy very inexpensively, a hydrometer.
Great. Thank you all so much for telling us a little bit more about salinity. And it's really important for the animals that live here to have the right amount of salinity because they're adapted to live in environments in an estuary where there's both fresh and salt water.